The forecast on the front of the newspaper for April 3rd, 1974 read, windy and warm with a chance of showers. The next day, it read like this.
It's easy. The 1974 event ranks as the worst tornado outbreak in the United States history.
The super outbreak, legendary. It's the one, the only tornado outbreak of its kind.
Just 2 days earlier, severe weather hit much of the area. There were even a few tornadoes, including one that hit Campbellsburg, Kentucky.
A person was killed in Henry County.
Now it appeared that the ingredients for an even larger outbreak was coming together. Forecasters that day were tracking powerful upper-level winds approaching from the west and an unseasonably warm and moist air mass surging out of the Gulf. All of this was moving our way. Meteorologists from the Storm Prediction Center contacted Reeves the day before.
Be ready. Tomorrow may be the biggest outbreak that we've had.
Despite the warning, local forecasters had no way of knowing the magnitude of the event that was about to unfold.
But the spots began to show up on our radar.
Between 1 p.m. and 7 the following morning, the eastern U.S. was overwhelmed by a record-setting 148 tornadoes that tracked across 13 states between the Gulf Coast and the Canadian border. 30 of those twisters reached F4 status or stronger. Locally, about a dozen of those tornadoes hit our area that day. 9 of these storms were considered violent, and 2 of them became F5s.
There was places across the river where the earth was wiped clean. There was homes had been built on concrete slabs. There was nothing but a concrete slab, nothing.
This historic marker represents the location of the old Meade County Courthouse, which stood here in downtown Brandenburg for more than 102 years. However, on the afternoon of April 3rd, 1974, all that changed when this community was struck by the worst disaster in its history.
Kind of like swimming in maple syrup. The humidity and the conditions just had a very tight feeling that day.
But I do remember it being really muggy. It was uncomfortable.
But little did they know this storm would be a part of the most violent tornado outbreak ever seen.
She called me, said the tornado is headed right for you all, right for Brandenburg.
For many, a phone call was the only warning they received.
Of course, tornadoes didn't happen in Meade County.
When you've never experienced anything like that, that's not really in your realm of thinking, I don't think.
But the danger was real. Approximately a half hour before reaching Brandenburg, the tornado touched down across western portions of Breckinridge County. From there, it quickly moved to the northeast while rapidly strengthening into a 500-yard wide F5 monster.
But it was a wall as black as I'd ever seen coming right down High Street.
I don't really think it sounded like a train. A lot of people say that. It was just such a loud roar, just a horrible roar.
And that was just the beginning.
Heard all the glass breaking up front. That was really, really terrifying.
I saw cows in the air. They was on their back, the legs up, and they were just flying in the sky, in the air.
We kind of hunkered down. I don't know whether we got down or we were knocked down.
As soon as they got in the door,
Dan Dressel's parents and grandparents took cover in an office downtown.
And as soon as my dad got through the second room right there, everything on top of the hill come down on top of them.
Dan is talking about West Hill, which is located directly above Main Street, where the most extreme damage occurred.
Everything on top of the hill, there was the Jenkins Funeral Home, and everything up on that part of town ended up down here.
You just see total destruction. It's just trees are everywhere, wires are everywhere.
And you can see people trapped in their cars, and they were hollering for help, please help, and it had electric wires on them, and there's nothing that I could do. You can see dead bodies laying on the road, in the roads.
Dressel didn't know the fate of his family until later when he met up with a friend.
He said, well, your dad got killed in that tornado, and it floorboarded me.
Wow.
And that was why I found out my father was killed. And I didn't believe him. I could not believe him.
Tragically, 31 people were killed in Meade County that day, more than half of them in a single block on West Hill. Nearly 300 others were hurt.
To this day, when they talk tornadoes and bad weather, I'm as tense today as I was in 1974 when it comes on. You never forget something like that.
When we were kids, my sister and I used to play in this tree. This tree's not ordinary. It's twisted, it's mangled. It's one of the few remnants left from a violent storm that visited this area 40 years ago.
For April, it was extremely warm. It was like 84 degrees, 83 degrees. It was humid.
It was sunny, just like it is today. It was just as calm as could be.
But all that changed by the afternoon.
And it was very, very discernible because it was the only cloud out. It was a day like today, except for that one.
Just a big old black cloud, real big.
And it was like this cloud was so low I could almost touch it. I mean, I felt like I could almost touch it.
The ominous storm cloud was more than it appeared.
Even at that time, as I say, I didn't realize that there was a tornado on the ground.
I asked Dad, I said, have you ever seen anything like this before? And he said, no. And we just both knew that we had to leave immediately.
With Grandpa driving, everyone piled into the car.
But immediately, as soon as we got to that highway, the wind coming across the road started shaking the back of the car. And I was sitting in the back seat, and I said, Dad, you've got to go faster. It's coming, it's coming. You got to go faster. And he says, I've got it all the way to the floor. This is all it's going to do. But the wind had the back of that car, and it was just taking it from side to side like that, and for about a mile. And then we outrun it.
But not before my family watched the storm destroy the body shop down the street.
And then all of a sudden the roof started coming down. Walls came in and it flattened the building all the way down. The only thing that left was the bathrooms.
Fortunately for Eddie Hendricks, that is where he had taken shelter. Meanwhile, Alice Raw was home cooking dinner when the storm arrived.
All of a sudden the house started shaking. My china was starting to fall out of the china cabinet. When I felt the house starting to fall apart, I ran outside. The first thing I saw was my car sitting there, and I thought, there's safety.
As soon as she got in, the car started tumbling across the property while being slammed by debris. A 2x4 came smashing through the back window.
I count my blessings daily because that 2x4, had I not been laying down on that seat at that time, would have hit me.
Her family was next door at the time when the storm picked up their home and ripped it apart.
It was like someone had put a bomb in it and it went, because all of a sudden it just shattered.
When my family returned, they were shocked by what they saw.
Because there was 5 houses up on the highway right in front of our property. And I remember there was nothing left but the concrete slabs, not a stick of wood anywhere.
Looked like a giant broom had descended from heaven and swept them all clean. Nothing left but the foundation.
Unfortunately, the storm destroyed my family's homes too.
That if we had been 30 seconds later, we may not be here at all.
Alice lost a horse, and one of her cows even ended up under her house.
But I had 3 horses left, and I had 5 calves left, and we were alive.
It has been called Louisville's darkest day, a day of disaster, and the most tragic day in Kentucky's history. For Louisville, on April 3rd, 1974, it all started right here.
Now the wind damage hit the roof of Freedom Hall, and it tore 3 big holes in the roof. Then it moved over on the eastern end of the building and ripped off about 1/3 of the roof here.
Someone yelled into where I was, that, come look at this. And I just took about 4 or 5 steps, and I could see out the front of the terminal building at Stanford Field. And I just saw a black shaft over Freedom Hall.
It wasn't like the little small tornadoes you would see. This thing was so huge.
The tornado tore across Eastern Parkway and Bardstown Road.
All those tall poles, those 80-foot poles, every one of them was just snapped and just laying across the road. It looked like a war zone.
The twister ripped a path of destruction through Seneca and Cherokee parks, taking down every tree in sight. Meanwhile, in Crescent Hill, the Dentker family was settling in for the night.
Well, besides watching TV, I just remember how dark it became outside. It was huge, it was black. I don't remember it twisting or anything. I just remember seeing it, and in the house I went and got Mom.
I just yelled to get to the basement, and so everybody ran.
My grandparents and I just made it to the bottom of the steps into the storeroom just when it hit.
You can hear things moving around, things breaking, but you're in the storeroom trying to stay alive. Heard it, felt it. I mean, the house was rumbling.
Other victims say you hear that roar, and I definitely heard the roar. I mean, it just sounded like a train sitting on top of the ceiling. I mean, just a huge wind tunnel. You could just feel it over top of you, and that's all you could hear. You couldn't hear anything else.
Big sycamore tree in the yard next door fell on the house, which, when the tree fell, it blew out the walls. It blew out the windows. It made paint chips fall from the ceiling.
The rampage continued into Indian Hills.
I looked down the street and it was just total, complete devastation. It was probably maybe about a 400, 500 yard swath, but everything in that was just total destruction. My son at the time was here with his mother, and to get out of the house, they had to climb over some trees to get out a window.
When we came back up from the basement, literally it took us, but Mom had to get her arm and get the door open. There was so much debris. Literally the basement doors on one end of the house, and we actually had to crawl through stuff, and we actually exited this window over here at the other end of the house.
When we came up, I have such a visual memory of everything was just destroyed.
I remember being so scared that you thought another tornado was going to come any minute.
I just said, don't cry. I said, we'll make it.
The Louisville tornado traveled 20 miles from near the fairgrounds and through the East End before lifting into western portions of Oldham County. In total, 3 people were killed by the storm, with more than 200 others hurt. Some say if it wasn't for the damage reports from Brandenburg and Southern Indiana, the death toll would have been much higher.
I always thought, kind of in my mind, that the people in Brandenburg paid the price and saved a lot of people in Louisville.
I still this day wonder how come we were spared and so many people weren't.
In 40 years, the storms haven't changed.
It's a scary thing, and it's something that you don't ever forget.
But our ability to track them has.
We have amateur radio interface with the Weather Service. We have text messaging. We have the E-Spotter program. Numerous things that we do now with the Weather Service that speeds the warning issue.
Back then, there was no Doppler radar. There was no way to track winds or estimate intensity of a storm.
We really didn't think about hook echo patterns in those days because the radars weren't that sophisticated.
Now we have the technology.
Our radars are unbelievably more advanced now than they were.
We can actually look inside the storm and see the tornado before it even forms.
The fact that we can get warnings out a lot earlier, the fact that everyone's tied in with social media, and we're just dialed in. A lot of people are aware.
So if 1974 happened again, we would be able to let people know much further in advance.
The awareness we have now is something that just didn't exist back then.
January 1975, Congress released a report stating that lack of warning was the main cause of the loss of life and the massive number of injuries.
More than 300 were killed, thousands more were hurt.
Looking back, it's actually turned into a good memory, believe it or not, because I think it allows you to come together as a family, as a neighborhood, and it's just a proud moment, really.
And at least for one, the storm created a calling.
But I chose to stay here and try to improve the county and keep us ready in case another 74 decided to come along. And that's pretty much what I've dedicated my life to doing.